We continue with the 30th chapter of the book of Divrei Hayamim Bet. We are discussing the life of Chizkiyahu, or he's called in this book Yechizkiyahu, great king. We described how he pulled away idolatry in the beginning of his reign and was brought the Jewish people back to God. And chapter 30 continues after he's purified the temple. Vayishlach Yechizkiyahu al kol Yisrael v'Yehuda v'gam igrot katav al Ephraim u'Menashe lavo leveit Adonai b'Yerushalayim lasot Pesach la'Adonai Elohei Yisrael. So Chizkiyahu sends a message to all of Israel and Judah, even Ephraim and Menashe, right? Not just David and Yehuda and Binyamin and maybe Shimon, but he sends to the other tribes as well to come and to bring the Karban Pesach, to celebrate Pesach for by the God of Israel. The king and the officers and the congregation of Jerusalem had agreed to keep the Passover in the second month. Now, this is interesting, right? Pesach is in the first month. And we know it's days after Rosh Hashanah, birthday of the world. But in terms of the sort of the Jewish calendar as we know it from the time of Yetziat Mitzrayim, when God says to Moshe, you'll see the moon, HaChodesh Hazeh Lachem, Rosh Chodeshim. The first month of the Jewish year is the month what we call Nisan, and so the second month would be what we call Iyar, and we know that there's Pesach Sheni. So this is not an individual Pesach Sheni. Jews, they're those who are impure and ask Moshe in the desert what they should do, and God responds that if you're far away or if you're Tameh, then you can celebrate Pesach a month later. And the temple wasn't ready. They weren't ready to do Pesach the first time around. So they switched it, and now they're doing Pesach in the second month around. That's the advice that's being given here. Okay, let us continue. They weren't able to keep it, meaning on the 15th of Nisan, as we call it, because the priests hadn't sanctified themselves and the people hadn't gotten to Jerusalem. And the king and the whole congregation, everyone thought it was okay. That's fine. We'll do it a month later. Lavo lasot Pesach la'Adonai Elohei Yisrael b'Yerushalayim ki lo larov asu katuv, and they issued a decree throughout all of Israel from Beersheba all the way to Dan, and that's like goes back to the end of the Torah. I believe when Moshe's looking, God says, "Go up to the mountain and see the land because you won't go into it." And I believe it says Moshe sees from Beersheba to Dan. So we have here the sense of the unity, and it could be potentially unity of the entire Jewish people coming back to do the Pesach, because they didn't act. They didn't always listen and do the things that were said to them in Scripture, in what was written down. Ashur, and there were messengers sent out. They're running with the letters from the king all over Israel, all over Yehuda, and saying, "Return to the God of Abraham, of Yitzchak, of Yisrael. Return to the remnant that you who escaped from the hands of the king of Assyria." So let me take a pause here. Chizkiyahu lives during the time of the exile of the 10 tribes. Sancheir will come down, lay a siege. We learned about it. We'll learn about it again. Miracle that they run away. Yerushalayim is saved, but the 10 tribes are not saved. They are exiled. And so already a great destruction has happened. I don't know if this is after the 10 tribes have been exiled and it's only a few who are left, or some of them have been destroyed. Some of the cities have been, but certainly this is a time when much of Malchut Yisrael has been decimated. Out to you in verse 7, Pasuk Zayin, Kavotechem uchachechem asher malu ba'Adonai Elohei avotehem, vayitneim lashamak asher atemrim. Don't be like your fathers and brothers who sinned against God, and he turned them into horror as you see. Atal tikshu arpechem kavotechem. Don't be stubborn and stiff-necked like your fathers. Tnu yad la'Adonai uvo lamikdash asher yitish la'olam v'vdu et Adonai Elohechem yashov michem charon apo. Right, submit yourselves to God and to his sanctuary, which is he's made it kadosh forever, for all time, and serve God, and then his anger will turn away from you. Ki b'shuvchem al Adonai achechem, uvnechem l'rachamim l'fnei shovehem, v'lashuv la'eretz hazot ki chanun v'rachum Adonai Elohechem, V'lo yasir panim mikem im tashuvu. And if you return, your brothers, your children, right, they will be treated mercifully by their captors. And God will, right, a little bit. We have the Shloshes Rei Midot, 13 attributes of mercy of God. We have a couple of them mentioned here, right? Chanun v'rachum, Yasir Panim, right? So there are things related to them and words that are related to them. Obviously, not all of them, but the idea of compassion. And so they go, Vayu Aratzim over Meir Leir Beretz Ephraim Nashav Yad Zvulun Vayihu Mesachkim Aleim Umal Igbam. The messengers, they went from one town to the next, Ephraim, Menashe to Zvulun. And what was the response of the 10 tribes? Largely, mostly, they were mocked. They were laughed at. They were scorned. Nevertheless, but some of them did come, some from the tribe of Asher, some from the tribe of Menashe, some from the tribe of Zvulun. They did come. And in terms of the tribe of Yehuda, Chizkiyahu's tribe, they had a single mind. They were all focused to carry out the command of the king and the officers regarding the return to God and the bringing of the Karban Pesach. And thus in Pasuk Yud Gimel, Vayasvu Yerushalayim Am Rav Lasot Chag HaMatzot B'Chodesh HaSheni Kahal Larov Ma'od. A great crowd assembled in Jerusalem to keep the festival of Matzah in the second month. And if you didn't get it the first time, we're told again, it is a very large congregation, a great assembly, a huge turnout. Vayakumu vayasirot mihamizbachot asher b'Yerushalayim v'kol ha'maktarot hesiru v'eshlichu l'nachal Kidron. They said and removed the altars that were in Jerusalem, and they moved all the incense stands and threw them into the Wadi Kidron. Vayishchetu ha'Pesach b'arbasar l'chodesh ha'sheni v'hakohanim v'levim nichlemu v'yitkadshu v'yaviu olot beit Adonai. They slaughtered the Paschal lamb on the 14th of the second month, and the priests and Leviim, they were ashamed, and they sanctified themselves and brought burnt offerings to the house. Right, they weren't ready. There weren't enough of them, and so there's a little bit of a problem here in terms of the Kohanim and the Leviim, that they weren't ready to fully listen to the command that was being given to them. Okay, sorry, apologize again with this. Now my app is not working. I have these pauses, so pretend I'm Okay, so some of the Leviim and some of the Kohanim are not able to be proper. They weren't ready. They weren't fully purified, and therefore, what happens? They took stations, as was the rule from the Torah, and the priest took the blood which they received from the Leviim, and they're spilling the blood and throwing the blood. Because many of them had not sanctified themselves. And the Leviim were in charge of slaughtering the Pesach, the Karbanei Pesach for everyone who was not clean, so as to consecrate them to God, right? If you were clean, then you could do it yourself. But if you weren't, it's saying here that you couldn't. And so the Leviim were doing much of them, and it was overwhelming. Ki marbitam rabat me'Ephraim, we're in Pasuk Yudchet, Menashe, Yisachar, Zvulun, lo hetaru, ki yachlu et HaPesach b'lo kakatuv, ki palel, because most of the people from Ephraim, from Menashe, from Yisachar, from Zvulun, they did not become ritually pure. But nevertheless, they ate the Paschal sacrifice in violation of what was written, and Chizkiyahu prayed for them, saying that God will provide atonement for what they're doing, right? This is not the ideal situation. This is the beginning of a transformation back for the Jewish people. And so at this point, we have it's not perfect. It's the second month. It's not perfect. Many of the people are impure, but you got to take that first step. Continuing Pasuk Yotek, everyone who set his mind on worshiping God, the Lord of God, his fathers, even if he is not purified for the sanctuary. And here, this is a specific word which we've said many, many times in this book, lidrosh. Right? There were certain kings, the best of the kings, they went to Doresh. They searched out for God. The ones who weren't as good in this book, for the most part, not talking about the full-fledged idolaters, they did not search out God. God had to send a Navi. God had to send his messengers to them. And what's going on here? All the people want to seek out God. These people came from far away from the territory of Manasseh and Ephraim and Issachar and Zvulun, and they came from far away. And so it's not perfect, but let's not put up a wall and keep them from keeping the mitzvot. Vayishma Adonai leChizkiyahu vayirpa ha'am. God heard Chizkiyahu and he healed the people. Not fully clear why it says what vayirpa is supposed to mean in that in this context, but that's what he does. Right? It seems like vayirpa here is meaning he accepts it. He doesn't look at it as a fault. Vayisu b'nei Yisrael nimsaim b'Yerushalayim chag hamatzot shivat yamim b'simcha gedola u'mahalim la'Adonai yom b'yom haleviim v'akohanim b'chli oz la'Adonai. And so all of Israel who was in Jerusalem, they kept the Pesach for 7 days, rejoicing. The Leviim were singing, and every day there were powerful instruments and singing and sacrifices brought. Vayidaber Chizkiyahu alev kol haleviim v'hamaskilim seichel tov la'Adonai v'yochlu et hamoed shivat hayamim mizbachim zivchei shlamim umitvadim la'Adonai Elohei avoteihem. And Chizkiyahu, he persuaded all the Leviim to spend the 7 days and also confessing their sins to God, right? He's trying to get everybody to turn to God. As mentioned before. So, right, they're going to add another 7 days. They're going to have 14-day Pesach, maybe making up for some of the last ones. They're not going to offer the Korban Pesach again, but this is going to be more days of Simcha, more days of joy for them. Ki Chizkiyahu melech Yehuda herim lakal 1,000 parim v'shivat alafim tzon v'asarim herimu lakal parim 1,000 tzon aseret alafim v'yitkadshu kohanim larav. King Chizkiah contributed 1,000 bulls and 7,000 sheep, and the officers gave 1,000 bulls and 10,000 sheep, and the priests sanctified themselves in large numbers. It's a large amount of sacrifices, perhaps not compared to Shlomo HaMelech, but a major amount of sacrifices, and they really needed everybody. And all the congregation of Yehuda and the priests and the Levites and all the congregation from Israel and the strangers who came from Israel, lived in Yehuda, all of them were rejoicing. They were happy. They felt good about what they had done. This was the best it had been, full of pride, full of joy, full of people, the best that we've had since the time of Shlomo, which is a long time before this, and it's sad. There were some great kings in the middle, but none of them who had the ability of bringing the Jewish people together. Obviously, there were many who mocked the messengers who went north. There were many who didn't come, but this is the first time since the days of Shlomo that we have Yehuda and Yisrael together worshiping God in Jerusalem. So it's a monumental event. So the Leviim and the Kohanim, they stood up and they blessed the people, and their voice was heard, and their prayer went up to the heavens, went up to God's location. And so this is a very significant chapter, like we said. And what's really sort of shocking about it is nothing in the book of Melachim about it. If you only read the book of Melachim and we didn't have Divrei Hayamim, we would not hear about the Pesach of Chizkiyahu, which there are a number of very important events during the life of Chizkiyahu. But this is a great moment. This is a moment, like it said. It says that this is the first time since the days of Shlomo, right? From the time that Yeravam rebels against Rechavam, he places guards. He switches the dates of the festivals. The Jews, seemingly, maybe there are a few here and there, but certainly en masse, they don't go up to Yerushalayim to celebrate even Pesach. And so this is a great moment. And Chizkiyahu here has really brought the Jewish people back to God, back to morality, is the hope, with a real sense of pride and joy that's happened from it. And it's a great moment. And it's one of the, really, to be honest, one of the highlights of the entire Tanakh of the Jewish people doing what they were meant to do when God brought them to Israel and gave them this land.